What is up, ladies and gents? You know what time of day it is. It's XCN time, and in today's video we're going to be talking all about XCN. We're going to be discussing what we are seeing here on the charts, and I'll be giving you guys my price prediction for XCN over the coming days and weeks, as well as my targets for 2025. So be sure to stay tuned for all of that. Of course, if you are a new viewer, then welcome to this channel. If you do like this sort of content, hit the like button and subscribe for more. If you are a returning viewer, as always, welcome back to the channel. It's great to have you all here. So, of course, we're going to be diving straight into this video. We're going to start off with the news and the shorter term here for XCN, and then I'll be giving you my 2025 targets. Of course, we are on the one-day chart right now for XCN, and I do think that right now could be a turning point for XCN in the shorter term. And we've got a few bullish catalysts, as well as what we're seeing here on the chart, to really look forward to over the coming days and weeks. So the first thing that I think could push the prices much higher here in the shorter term for XCN is the fact that in 3 days' time, we have the interest rate decision coming from the Fed in the USA. Now, of course, this is a very, very important event because at the end of the day, if we do get those rate cuts, it supports an environment where investors are more risk on. Now, crypto is a risky asset at the end of the day. So if we get those rate cuts, it's going to be very bullish for crypto. Now for September the 15th, we are expecting a rate cut. So in theory, if we get that rate cut, that could start something a lot more bullish over the coming days here on XCN. We could start to see the prices rise here in the shorter term. Now, not only do we have those rate cuts on September the 15th, we've also got this little teaser here from the Onyxcoin team. Now, of course, this is the project that they have been working on now since March of this year. Of course, this is their new layer 1 that they are developing. There's the countdown timer, which currently says 18 days, but I do like this cryptic little thing underneath that says or sooner with that eye emoji. So, you know, we could see a surprise drop here from the XCN team. Of course, don't forget that XCN did a massive 20x at the start of 2025. So do not underestimate what these type of events can do for the XCN price. Now, of course, this testnet that we're going to see for Goliath will basically prove that the model that they're working on does actually work. So things like the speed of the transactions, for example, they're trying to aim for above 100,000 transactions per second with a very fast finality. We're going to see if that's actually the case with this testnet that's coming out in 18 days or so. There's other things that we'll be looking for as well. They'll be doing other checks to do with the security of the blockchain as well. But essentially, this testnet that they are releasing is going to show the world what the team have been working on for the past 6 months. They have very high ambitions. So essentially, what I think is going to happen in the shorter term is that prices are probably going to rise up towards the date of this testnet. Of course, they've got this little teaser, like I say, so maybe they drop something even sooner as well. But I think the anticipation will push the prices up here on XCN, or at least give XCN a bullish bias. And if this testnet proves to be a success for what the team want to achieve, then I do think that that could start something extremely bullish here on XCN, something similar to what we saw back at the start of 2025. So, of course, if we head onto the charts here of XCN and just have a look at what we are seeing, first thing that is bullish here for XCN in the shorter term is the fact that we have already seen a bullish crossover on the one-day MACD. You can see that that has actually happened a little bit of time ago. So about 5 days ago, we saw a bullish crossover. That is a strong buy signal since it's on the one-day chart. So that's the first good news here for the shorter term in XCN. Of course, another thing that we've seen here on this channel as well is this divergence that's been in place. So if I draw the support for the price, you can see that this trend line is clearly facing downwards. But if we look on the one-day MACD and draw the same trend line over the same time period, we can actually see that this trend line here on the MACD is facing upwards. So what this tells us is that in the near future, we could see a trend reversal. It basically says that even though the prices are going down, the momentum on average is getting more bullish. So what this means here for XCN, in my opinion, is that as prices start to rise, we are going to first encounter a resistance that looks a little bit like this. So right now, as prices head over to this resistance here at about 0.012, maybe over the next few hours to days, then we could see this as a strong resistance. But if we see a breakout to the upside from this falling wedge pattern here, then we could be looking at a decent price target in the shorter term here for XCN of the distance between the first test of support to the first test of resistance. If we drag the measuring tool to wherever we see a breakout, let's say that happens right after the rate cuts on the 15th of September, we are looking at a price target here on XCN of 0.0187, so 58% upside here on XCN if we see a breakout from this upper resistance line. Now, of course, if you guys want to get $10 completely free to buy some XCN before we see any such pump, then don't forget to check out the MEXC exchange. As you guys can see, they're giving every new user who signs up using the link in the description down below $10 to get started. Now, of course, this exchange does not require KYC. The only thing you need to do to get that money is to deposit some fiat currency or crypto into your new MEXC account. And of course, that $10 is yours straight away. So like I say, you can use that money to buy some XCN, or you can use that money to long or short XCN with up to 20 times leverage using their futures exchange. Of course, the link for this again is in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for your support. Let's get back into this video. So this is what we're seeing here, in my opinion, in the shorter term. Of course, things do get even more exciting when we zoom out here on the chart, because in my opinion, if we look at XCN in 2025, we have just seen one massive consolidation. Of course, the prices at the start of 2025 gave us this mind-blowing 20x here on the chart. And since that period, I do think that we can consider this whole price action a sort of consolidation that looks a little bit like this. So essentially, what we have here on XCN is a resistance that looks like this. It's been tested on 3 separate occasions now. We've got a support that looks a bit like this. We've had this area over the past week, which has basically come to hug this support, and now we're starting to see a bounce from it. Of course, right now we are close to the support, but as prices start to rise here in the shorter term, what I am expecting is that when we get close to this resistance here, that sits at about 0.015, maybe we see a bit of resistance, but if we see a sharp breakout to the upside, so what I'm talking about is something looking like this, where prices jet above this upper resistance line, this tells us that we could have seen a meaningful breakout from this triangle pattern. Now, of course, if that does occur here on XCN, then we could be looking at a huge price target in the longer term. So for 2025, of the distance between the first test of support to the first test of resistance. And if we drag this to wherever we could see that breakout here on XCN, of course, we are looking at a pretty huge price target of 0.09. So of course, this is something to really look forward to if this triangle is to exist. Of course, what we also have is if we drag these trend lines until they both meet, you can see that we also get a deadline for when XCN really has to make its mind up about what it wants to do with its consolidation. And of course, that deadline where the 2 trend lines meet is at the start of November of 2025. So in my opinion, this is an advantage here for XCN because generally speaking, Q4 of a bull market year is generally very bullish for crypto. And of course, Q4 refers to October, November, and December. So we're going to get a bullish bias anyway towards the end of 2025. And so essentially this triangle could be the driving force here for XCN to be going quite a bit higher. And I do think that the news that we're going to be seeing with the rate cuts and this Goliath testnet release that we're going to see could be the catalyst needed here for XCN to break out of its massive year-long consolidation pattern. So that's one of my main targets here for XCN in 2025. Of course, just one more thing that I am monitoring as well is potentially this upper resistance looking like this instead. Of course, if that is the case, then we get a slightly smaller price target, still a formidable one, but a slightly smaller price target here on XCN of 0.061. So 2 potential targets there from a breakout of the longer term triangle that we are seeing. Of course, other things as well that kind of give me conviction that we're going to see this breakout to the upside from this triangle is the fact that when we look at other charts, for example, the total free market cap, so this is the market cap of all of crypto minus Bitcoin and Ethereum, you can see that this chart is in a massive ascending triangle. Now, of course, ascending triangle is generally a bullish chart pattern. And what this is telling us is that we are really close to breaking out to the upside. Now, if the total free breaks out of this ascending triangle, we get a market cap target here of about $4 trillion. Now, this is essentially telling us that once we see that breakout, on average, cryptos are going to do about a 3 or a 4x this bull cycle. So in a way, we have a base case here for XCN. If it performs averagely, we could see the prices here on XCN do a 3 or a 4x to about 0.03 or 0.04. And again, that's if XCN performs averagely. So we have the total free market cap about to break out to the upside, a very bullish thing in my opinion. Once we start to see this resistance give, then there is no stopping this chart, and we could see that massive pump over the next few weeks and months to this $4 trillion market cap. Now, of course, for XCN, some other price targets that I'm monitoring here on XCN are the ones that fall along these fib levels. At the end of the day, these fibs have been tested as resistances and supports multiple times here on XCN. So when XCN comes to make new all-time highs, in my opinion, these fib levels are ones to look for where XCN could find some resistance. So the previous high there was 0.05. The next fib tells us that we could see about 11 cents here on XCN. Beyond that, we have this 1.414 fib that tells us we could see 0.17. And in the most ambitious case here for XCN, this golden fib ratio tells us we could see 0.33. Now, of course, for the best possible chances for prices to get to that sort of level, what we need to see here in the crypto market are these two indicators giving us values close to 100. So right now we are about in the middle here. We are at 65 for the altcoin season, 50 for the fear and greed index. What we need to see for there to be euphoria in the market is a value here of at least 80, and for an altcoin season we need to see this value at 75. So we are really heading in the right direction. Of course, if you are around here for my videos about 3-4 months ago, these values for the altcoin season were closer to 20. So we are making good progress here for this altcoin season. We are not there yet. So there's still places to go here for crypto, but we are heading in the right direction. Of course, as these values approach 100, if you're a longer term holder, that could tell you that we are close to a market top in crypto. So it could be a good time to consider selling if you are holding cryptos when these two here are both close to 100. But of course, until we get to that point, we stay patient here on XCN. I do think that good things are going to be happening sooner rather than later here on the chart. Of course, that are my thoughts here on XCN. And thank you so much for watching this video. Do let me know down in the comments if you are a holder here on XCN. If you are a holder, let me know what your personal price targets are for 2025. Of course, thank you once again. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.